Gary, you don't do anything small. How did you get interested in model railroading?
There was a kid next to Horseman School. He was from England. And on his dining room table, he had a Lionel, and he had a passenger train and a freight train. And I always wanted one. And then when I got older, I got some money, and I guess I kind of went crazy.
Well, you have a layout here. Incredible. All kinds of different trains. What scale are these?
These are O scale, and they're Lionel and MTH. And I had a gentleman come in, and he wired it up. His name is Leroy Reinhardt from Huntington, Indiana. And Doug Henry did the intricacy work on the cars.
Some of the cars, you have them stressed to look real.
Well, that's how they are on the railroad, and if you're going to do this thing, you have to do it right. And, it's like a former Huntington policeman built the bridges, Jay Allen, and he did them, I take no credit for this. All I did was put up the money. They built the layout.
It's a work in progress, isn't it? I mean, you still have future plans.
You never get it done. It's never going to be done. I'm going to run the Chicago L train around the top and make them cross each other, facing each other in the center. So
right now, how many trains can you get going at one time?
I can run 5. But then I can shut them off and run 5 more out of the sidings.
Amazing. How long did it take to put something like this together?
Probably a year and some money.
Any particular train have a special meaning to you?
Well, the Erie, Lackawanna, and the trains from Huntington and Marion. The Erie, Lackawanna, the Wabash, Marion had the Pennsylvania. Those are the trains I remember as a kid. My grandmother took a trip to Chicago, God bless her, on a passenger train, stayed at the YMCA. She was hard of hearing, and so I wanted those trains on this layout.
Okay. Gary, as a kid or sometime in your life, any train trips you have memories of?
I took the El Capitan from Los Angeles to Chicago, and it was a fun ride. It really was. I was 17 years old, and I walked out of the train station in Chicago, and I went, holy moly, I got to get out of here. This town's too big for me.
All this memorabilia, all the train artifacts you have, where do you find all this?
Well, there's a train store in Kokomo called the Train Exchange. Jim Thomas owns that, and there's Mr. Muffins, which is up and now in Atlanta, Indiana, a tremendous layout. It'll make this look small, really. So, and a lot of it you buy online, from MTH, Lionel, different vendors.
You also collect toy farm equipment, and you have an incredible collection here.
Well, I like this stuff. If you look at over there on the wall, I mean, the combines and the stuff, there's an art to it to me. I mean, I see an old piece of farm equipment, but also it's art and it's history. And many of the full-size ones have went away, or they've rusted away, or they're junk, and they're not preserved. But they do them in the small ones, and they do cheap ones, and they do more expensive ones. I happen to have a lot of the expensive ones, and they're just, to me, I remember those things as kids, and I wanted to, they ought to be somewhere where everybody can see them, really.
You've traveled all over the country. Are you always looking for things?
Yeah, every time, I'll be driving down the road, and one day I went into a place and they didn't have anything I wanted except they had a light off of a 1913 car, and I've got it in the other room somewhere. I can't find it, but it's there. The idea of the whole thing was the history of the automobile and the history, actually it's a history of transportation. There's cars, there's trains, there's airplanes. It's just, when you get old and you got a few bucks and the wife don't know what you're doing with your money, you sneak off and spend a little bit of it.
When you meet a lot of interesting people doing that, anybody stand out that special to you?
Well, I did meet the president of the Indiana Railroad, and he signed a bunch of stuff for me. A couple of those trains, he signed those. A very, very nice man. And a blue-collar person like me never gets the chance to meet the president of a railroad. So I went over to his house. A friend of mine cleans his house. And I said, can I come over? And he said, yeah. And I said, would you sign some stuff for me? And he said, nobody's ever asked me for an autograph before. I said, well, I'd like you to autograph about a dozen of my trains, some posters, and a couple checks, if you wouldn't mind. I got the trains, the posters, no checks.
Gary Jackson, you are an interesting guy. We appreciate you giving us time and showing us all around.
Thank you for coming, and I'm humbled by it.
Gary Jackson from Indianapolis, Indiana.